Okay, so I am very well rested.
Speak for yourself.
I mean, I did get I don't know.
Well, you fell asleep on the couch at 8 last night.
Yeah, I got 8 or 9 hours of sleep.
And I stayed up the last 2 nights playing virtual games on Zoom.
Quarantine. Welcome to episode 4. Is it 4?
I think so.
While she's napping.
Yep.
Hi, madam.
I'm Cindy.
There you go. And she's napping. She's down. She went down quick.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I had to wash my hair.
I understand.
It was so bad.
No, she went down quick. She was actually asking to go down.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she was asking for you. I was going to say that's new.
She was asking for you while I was getting her dressed. Of course she was. But,
yeah, I was just talking to a friend of mine last night during our Zoom virtual game night, and she was talking about how her daughter used to do the same thing. She's 4 now, but she said that she would just have to leave the house for a few hours when she got into those phases. And I was like, yeah, that would be great. I wish I had somewhere to go. Yeah. It's not really applicable to quarantine life, but I think it's a pretty common thing.
So it should be noted that we didn't get a lot we didn't get any hate or negativity towards me specifically last week. I thought it was going to be way worse. I thought people were going to disagree, which I don't know if they agree or I don't know if they just don't care, but we didn't get a lot of negative feedback on it. So thank you. I want to say we got a couple more 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Let's keep that train rolling. If you're listening to this for the first time, thank you. I appreciate it. If you found us randomly or on Twitter or on Facebook, we're on Facebook now. I'll get to that in a minute. Or on Reddit, I appreciate it. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, leave us 5 stars and a quick review. It helps us out a lot. Cindy bit the bullet and made a Facebook page for us. So she will be navigating the Facebook page from now on.
I can't Twitter.
I mean, you can.
I'm just bad at it. I'm just not used to it. I just don't. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
So today is Cindy's topic. Not that, we don't, agree on the topics or semi-discuss them beforehand. I like to keep on my toes when it comes to when Cindy plans an episode. So I'm not gonna indulge into a description of this because I'll just butcher it. So why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So I thought it would be fun. It's almost her 2nd birthday. Got a couple months left, but I just thought it would be fun to go back and reflect on, what things were like for us with the pregnancy experience and her birth story, and maybe talk a little bit about that first, the newborn stage, those first few months or up to the first year, I guess. And I just thought it would be interesting to look back on what we thought things were going to be like and what some of our expectations were, and then how things actually turned out. Our birth story in particular was definitely not.
It's memorable. I mean, all birth stories are memorable.
But I think we had a lot of expectations that were not met, and not necessarily in a bad way. But yeah, I thought it'd be fun to look back on that.
Okay. So it should be noted that our daughter, like you said, is almost 2 years old. So I don't mind.
22 months.
Yeah, I don't mind giving up this sort of detail. She was born in June of 2018. She arrived how many weeks early?
3 weeks early. So it was 37 weeks exactly.
Okay.
I was 37 weeks along.
I don't want to step on toes when it comes to the description, but when it comes to a rudimentary level, we didn't go the, I don't want to say traditional, I guess I want to say the popular route of just going to the hospital, having a designated doctor to give birth to the child, and with go ahead, I'm butchering this.
I worked with a midwife group.
You went the semi-crunchy route.
Semi-crunchy, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Not full-blown crunchy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I draw the line at the anti-vaxxer stuff.
Right.
But Yeah, well, and before we even get into that, I just want to acknowledge, because of where we are right now with the whole pandemic situation, that I think there's probably going to be times during looking back and telling the story that I make light of. There's at least one instance where I remembered not caring if you were going to be there or not, even.
Right.
It was, there was a little bit of trying to not push in the car. And I remember thinking not caring if you even ended up at the hospital with me or not.
But I was there.
I know, but there was... We're getting into the birth story now, but there was a point where you thought you weren't going to be able to get in because you didn't have your license.
Sure.
And I remember not caring. And I just want to acknowledge that I know that I've been hearing stories of women who are pregnant or who've been giving birth during the pandemic who don't have the option of having their partner there, or their birth support person if they have a doula or whatever, or a parent or a friend, whoever. And I just want to acknowledge that, I'm probably going to make light of that during this episode, but I have complete empathy for anyone who's in that situation right now, and my heart goes out to them.
Also, it should be noted, I feel like we say this before every episode because we sort of have to. When it comes to how you gave birth to your child or how you envision giving birth to your child, go with your gut. Like, do it your way. We're not trying to illustrate that this is the best way. It was certainly the best way for us in terms of how we planned it. How it went about wasn't necessarily how we thought it was going to end up being, but
it was still an overall positive experience compared to how it ends up for some people. I know that, but yeah.
Right, yep. Right. So we're just outlining what worked for us. When it comes to the process of it all, I guess I could say that it happened pretty fast. Like,
you mean in terms of trying to conceive, or birth story? The
birth story, like in terms of
it did
month 1 to month 9.5, I guess. Like, it maybe because I wasn't the one carrying around.
Oh, you mean the whole pregnancy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't the round carrier. I wasn't the one
round
carrying
I was a round carrier.
Child, like, so for me, it kind of went by lightning quick. But, my number one best advice for people is make sure you're fucking prepared. Like, make sure you have everything ready. We'll get to that in a bit. But I'm bearing the lead, so why don't you just go ahead?
Well, I thought you touched on like 3 different phases that I thought we could touch on. So there's the whole stage of when we decided we wanted to start a family and our approach to even getting pregnant, trying to conceive. And then we could talk a little bit about pregnancy, and then the actual birth story. And then if we have time, we could talk a little bit about the newborn phase. But I think I've referenced it before. I feel like that whole stage of my life is kind of a black hole that I may not remember much.
Well, you always said that I said I didn't want kids. That's not necessarily true. I've always wanted a child. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know that I wanted one. Well, I knew we couldn't have one before. Like, when we were living in our shitty apartment in Providence, you were like, oh, if we have a child now, it's not the worst thing. And now, like, looking back on it, it would have been terrible.
Well, I just meant that, at least we were in a committed relationship. We both had jobs. That's what I meant. Like, it could have been worse in terms of our financial and, situational readiness, but it could have been better, but it also could have been worse. I was just saying we would have made it work if it had happened,
right?
But it wasn't ideal. And the timeline ended up working out, pretty much exactly how we planned.
Well, I think why we wanted a child is because we had been married for 2 years at this point. 2 years, because it was on our...
When we got pregnant?
Yeah. Or when we started trying. It was 2 years because we went on our honeymoon 2 years later. And we had bought a house the summer before we went on.
Yeah, we got married in September, and then we bought the house in July of the following year. And then...
we went on our honeymoon in 17. So 15
a year later.
We got married. 16,
house.
We bought the house. Yep. 17, we went on our honeymoon. 18, she was born.
Right.
So... yeah, I just think at that time the standards of, the traditional means of having children, and by traditional means I mean the steps in which you take. There's no disrespect if you sort of went, other areas, or you
different
unplanned
timeline
children. It doesn't matter. We just did everything very particularized, if that's even a word. Like,
I was going to talk about that I always thought, once we were married, and especially once we had a house, I would be so like, oh, maybe I had been on the pill for many years since I was a teenager. But at that, I just thought, oh, we go off the pill and when it happens, it happens. Like, we'll just, sit back and let nature take its course kind of thing.
Right.
And then my type A came through full force when I found out that there were apps related to conceiving and pregnancy and all that. And I started tracking everything.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's partly, that definitely contributed to our success in getting pregnant pretty quickly.
Well, that and, we were in a position where it was time. Like, so for us, it was when we got married, you wanted to go on a honeymoon right away.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how I'd always pictured it.
I was like, I took the advice of my dad, rest in peace, and he was like, buy a house with that money because a house is forever. A honeymoon is
like a week.
Right. But like, again, a house doesn't have to be forever. If you want to make upgrades or you want to move or whatever. But I guess his point was you're going to be living in this place for a long period of time.
As an investment. Mm-hmm.
Whereas your honeymoon, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun as fuck. If you can drop like 10, 20 grand on a honeymoon, that'd be awesome. But it's obviously going to end. Whereas if you can drop 10, 20 grand, we didn't, by the way, but if you can drop 10, 20 grand on a house, you'll be living there for a while. And it is an investment. So we did married, house, honeymoon. All right, let's try to have a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the honeymoon is an investment of it in its own right. And
sure.
In the sense of,
it's a planning thing.
Well, it's an investment in your relationship. I mean, to have that time together. And I'm glad that we did end up doing it before we decided to start a family. I'm glad that we had that.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only time that we don't travel very often. We haven't been on very many vacations. And I'm glad that we did that when it was just the two of us,
Right.
Because you're probably not going to have that chance too many other times.
So let's skip all those details and let's get into when we found out we were pregnant. I want to say it was October.
It was.
Of 16.
17.
17. Yep. October of 17. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it was.
I remember how I felt.
Yeah. Well, I remember very vividly my first thought and words when I saw the positive on the pregnancy test, because I really didn't expect it to be positive at all. I was 95% sure that it was going to be negative, but something in the back of my mind was nagging me. Just go. I think I actually had you pick up a pregnancy test. I don't think we had any.
No, you had a pregnancy
you're right.
test.
I stopped and picked it up on my way home that day.
It was a shitty one.
Yeah.
I didn't trust it.
And, but it was, apparently it was reliable enough because it was right. But yeah, I just remember looking down and seeing the second line appear, and I just said out loud to myself in the bathroom, "What the fuck?"
Out loud to yourself?
Yes, because I was the only one there. I meant I said out loud. I wasn't talking to anyone.
Sure.
But I said it out loud, but to me, because you weren't there. I was in the bathroom by myself, and I just said, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Because I was in such disbelief that second line came up.
Well, it should be noted that we tried the month before. So I guess we tried in August for September. In September, the test came back negative.
Correct.
So we were new parents. I don't know if this is the same for everybody else that's trying to conceive their first child, but for me, I was just like, right, like you said, like, oh, it's never going to happen. So like after that, I feel like, all right, well,
which
just
is
waiting
silly.
For another negative.
Yeah, because
it's in hindsight.
Right. But even I knew that going into it, even when all the stars align and everything is right, and I could be messing up the numbers on this exactly, but what I remember is it's like a 20% chance of having a successful pregnancy, even if you're within the fertile window and there's no issues and all the timing is right and all that.
Right.
So to expect that we would have gotten pregnant the first time around was kind of an unrealistic expectation in of itself. Even getting pregnant the second month is still faster than most.
Right.
But for whatever reason, yeah, I had that same attitude because it didn't happen the first time. I didn't have any expectations for that second time. I just didn't want to get my hopes up.
Well, I do remember laying down on the living room floor while you were in there, and I was just like, this is stupid. Like, we're just gonna...
Yeah. Waste of a test.
Another waste of a test, blah, blah, blah. And then you come out and you're like, I'm pregnant. It's positive. And I said, the fuck it is.
And I was like crying.
Not that I didn't want it. It's not that
you were just in
I just didn't
disbelief.
believe it because it was a shitty, cheap test. And I was like, no, we're going to Walmart.
Yep, got in
and
the
we're
car.
buying a test with words, not symbols.
Yep.
Got in the car, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I will never forget this.
Mm-hmm.
I
remember the drive to
ever
Walmart.
forget this.
Me too.
And we bought two.
One with lines and one with words.
Yep. No, we bought one, and it came with two.
Right. It was
a
the
double
combination,
pack, yeah.
value pack, whatever.
And we came home. It was positive, and then you start, so I'm excited, and then you start putting into my head, well, hold up. It could be like what's known as a false positive. In other words, I could have lost the baby.
Oh, but that's super rare.
But you were all about it.
Well, I know, because like I said, I got way too sucked into, I read way too much. That's one of the things I was going to touch on today, is that it's one thing to be prepared and informed, and it's another thing to just like drown yourself in information and scare yourself into, things that are extremely unlikely to happen.
Right.
And I totally did that to myself.
Right.
And so, I was like, oh, well, it's positive, but the hormones can still be in your blood if you had been pregnant and then had a miscarriage so early that you mightn't even know. Like, yeah. And I just got totally in my head about that.
Well, when we went to the OB,
I went to my primary care doctor first.
Right. And then she was like, well, you're definitely pregnant.
Right. They did the blood test.
Then, yes, but we obviously didn't get the results in that day. We had to wait. And then we were like, no, you're pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, it was just sort of like a blur. Like, I don't know.
So what do you remember most about the pregnancy? Like, what was the most memorable thing to you, other than when we first found out and when she was born?
The gender reveal.
Yeah. That was fun.
The baby shower. Building and painting her
the dresser.
bureau.
Mm-hmm.
Putting together all her stuff. But
what was the weirdest thing or most memorable thing to you about the pregnancy itself? Like me being pregnant. Like, I remember...
Nothing. You were fine.
No, but I mean, like, remember the first time that you felt her kick?
Yes.
Oh my God, you freaked out.
I cried.
Yeah, but first you freaked out because
I couldn't. So because, all right, not to get too personal, your placenta was in a weird place or something? It was.
Yes, but it moved. I guess it's really common.
So, like, at first, I was like, or you were like, because of the placenta, you're not going to be able to feel. It was in front,
so it was harder to feel the movement.
Right. So I was assuming, I guess and don't take this the wrong way, a normal placed placenta. Like,
I'm not offended.
Okay. Like, you would feel the kick way earlier. So, like, I don't know, maybe it was month 6, month 5?
No, it was like, I think of pregnancy in weeks because that's how the milestones are measured. It was around 20 weeks. It was close to right around when we found out the gender.
Right. Well,
so it was a while. Yeah, it was like halfway through the pregnancy before you felt her kick.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that was pretty memorable.
I mean, and I had been feeling it for a while. That's why it felt like there was a long time in between when I felt it and when you could.
Well, yeah. And, you did, when she's inside of you, you're definitely going to feel it. But yeah, for me, that was the most memorable thing, is definitely the whole kicking. That was weird. What about you?
Well, I also, the cravings I had were weird.
Right.
Maybe not so much cravings, but the things I didn't want. It was pork chops. You hated
pork chops.
Yeah, which I normally don't mind.
They're
it's not my
good.
favorite, but like breaded pork chops could not stay. I don't know if it was the texture, the smell. It was, even now, I'm like, it kind of turned me off from them forever.
Right. Well, I mean, we've had them since.
Yeah, they're not my favorite.
No.
But that was really bizarre to me.
Right.
And it wasn't pork or meat or anything like that in general. It was just that one specific preparation of that one specific food.
Right. Right.
Other than that, I wanted like pickled beets, but I don't think that that's that abnormal, like pickled things. I think it's a pretty typical pregnancy craving.
Yeah, you were into pickles. You weren't really into like the stereotypical like ice cream and stuff.
Oh, I did want my ice cream though, but that's a whole nother...
You wanted ice cream more after she was born.
Well, it was summer.
No.
She was born in June.
Yes, but that's not what... We'll get to that if we can, but that's not why you wanted ice cream.
Oh, well, that's about the diabetes thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. We'll get to it later.
Okay.
But anyways, so
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, so the gender reveal was fun. I was the night before. I had a dream because we did a balloon pop thing. So we had 12 balloons.
Oh, don't try to explain.
Basically, the balloons. If you pop the balloon, it would dictate.
There was colored confetti inside.
Yeah, if you got a pink or a blue, we get the pink. And the night before, I had a dream that someone had the balloon and they were like, "Hey, do you want to see?" And I said yes, and they opened it up. This is a dream, so it's weird. They open up the blow end, and I look in, I saw pink confetti. Mm-hmm. So and it should be noted that we wanted a girl the whole time. I didn't want a boy. We always wanted a girl.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we would have been happy either way. I think for me,
everyone has a preference.
Well, so I think my preference just comes from what my expectation was.
No, I don't want anybody to get offended over this. This
no,
bothers
I'm not
everybody, not you. I'm saying, listen, don't fucking kid yourself. When you envision your first child, everyone's like happy and healthy. Yeah, no shit. But you definitely you have a preference. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're not going to love the child, whatever gender it is, when it's revealed. That doesn't matter at that point. But you have certain visions of raising. Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's based on what your expectations are. It was
always a girl for me.
And I think that was largely influenced by the fact that most of our close friends or family, people who we see most often, had little girls at that point, and we had gotten used to the idea of a little girl.
Right.
And so for me, at the very beginning of the pregnancy, for some reason, I had a feeling it was a boy, but that only lasted a couple of weeks.
We thought it was a boy because the first ultrasound looked like a boy.
No, it didn't. You were making things up.
Are you serious? She had the angry eyebrows.
Okay, she still has angry eyebrows.
No, she has delicate, like upward facing.
Oh,
eyebrows.
She doesn't give you the same look she gives me.
No, she gets what she wants from me.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but anyway, yeah, I for whatever reason I thought it was a boy at the beginning, and then that faded very quickly. And in my head, I think I was just so sure for whatever reason, I was so sure that it was a girl that I remember leading up to the gender reveal. I was just nervous that if it was a boy, that I would just not know. I knew that I would be happy and that it wouldn't, I wouldn't have been like devastated, but I think I would have been so surprised because I was so confident that it was a girl that I wouldn't have known what to do with myself.
So we already went through, if you want to hop back into the archives and check out the gender roles episode, we touched on how we approached building her nursery and getting her toys available for her before she was born. We don't have to rehash that because we touched on it in episode 2. I think it was episode 2. So hop in the archives, listen to that. Mm-hmm. Let's fast forward to how we went about the quote-unquote untraditional or uncommon, or I guess you could say...
I'd just say less common.
Unconventional way of approaching the medical side of the pregnancy. So we did a doula and what else? Midwife. We didn't have...
An OBGYN.
An OB, right. Why did you do that?
Well, the first practice I went to was an OBGYN practice who had one midwife on staff. And I knew from the beginning I wanted to go with a midwife just because I always had it in my head that I wanted to have an unmedicated birth.
That's right. We did that in Providence.
Yes, the first. Yep. And I don't really know what my...
Because your mom did it.
Yes, I knew my mom did it twice. I knew that she had very fast deliveries. And so I guess I just always thought that part of it, I think, was that I just wanted to see if I could.
Well, time out. Did your mom do it because she didn't have a choice and it was too late, or is that what she wanted?
I think it was a little bit of both. I know
your brother was quick.
Yeah, so was I. So her births were very similar to mine.
So maybe the second time she was like, I can do that again. But maybe the first time she had a different plan.
I think both times it happened so fast that she didn't have a choice. It was too late for an epidural.
All right.
It was very similar to me where like she was just waiting for the doctor to get there so that she could push.
Okay.
And so,
Talk about burying the lead.
Sorry. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Right.
So I think part of it was just, I wanted to do it if I could. And if it didn't turn out that way, I wasn't going to, it was what it was, but I just wanted to try to go that route.
Right.
And the more that I looked into it, once we did get pregnant, it just solidified my decision that was the right choice for me. And so in at that first practice we went to, the midwife, they did have a midwife, but I did not click with her. I just didn't have a great feeling. I didn't feel super comfortable. And I found out that
she said she might not even be available or something.
So it wasn't that she wouldn't be available. It was that she didn't do deliveries at the alternative birthing center within the hospital where we would have been delivering.
Do you remember why?
Because she wasn't part of a midwife group. She was a midwife within an OBGYN practice. I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly what the, guidelines are or whatever. But yeah, once I found that out, I was like, okay, because they told me, well, you can work with this midwife throughout your whole pregnancy for your prenatal care, but she won't. Your money. She won't be the one to deliver your baby.
Right.
I was like, then what's the point? Why would I? So yes. So then I transferred to a full midwifery group. They had like 8 midwives on staff, and I would go through and see a different one at each prenatal checkup so that I would have a chance to meet all of the midwives. That way, whoever was on call when I did go into labor, whoever would be there for my delivery, I would have at least met them once.
Right. So it should be noted that you weren't guaranteed one person, right? So we met 4 or 5 different midwives.
Yeah, we met almost all of them, and I would have met the rest if the pregnancy had gone to the full 40 weeks.
And we got the one we wanted.
Yeah.
All right.
So grateful for that. Yeah, I think it was actually my doula who recommended the group that we ended up
you can shout them out.
Yeah. Yeah, Sam. She was great.
No, I'm saying you can shout out the group.
I don't remember.
That's fine.
Is through Lifespan.
Yeah. It's in Providence.
Yeah. I've heard, though, the midwife who did our delivery actually isn't with that practice anymore. But
anyway, so we went about that. The gist of this is that you wanted an unmedicated birth. That was your goal. Mm-hmm. But you approached it in such a way that I like to say, and this is, again, not to give you any or less credit, you were sort of having... It's a CYA mentality. You were like, if I can, I can. If I want drugs, it's not a failure. It's just how I felt in the moment. And I think that was appropriate because obviously you're more in a position to prepare for if we have another child.
Right.
You had no fucking idea.
No, I had no idea what to expect. Exactly. And I did listen to a ton of, again, this was me being probably overly prepared or overly informing myself, but I listened to a lot of birth story podcasts, which...
I don't think that's uncommon in 2000.
No, maybe not. But I think there were some that I listened to that made me like terrified, and then... Of
course.
But I think it was good to hear the variety of experiences that people had. And it just kind of reassured me that no matter what ended up happening, it was okay. Like any version of birth is totally fine and it all is going to be okay.
Well, we talked to a buddy from college of mine. His wife is she's pretty like they're natural and organic. They abide by that lifestyle, and she wanted also to have a natural birth, but she was in labor for like forever. And remember, she ended up getting it just a little bit, and it helped.
Yeah.
And again, this is not to discredit them. It's just that when you're in labor, I think she was in labor for like 16 hours at the time.
Oh, that's not even that long compared to some of the other stories that I've heard.
But she was like, I can't sleep. And this was
it was a way to get
sleep.
rest so that she would be rested enough to actually deliver.
Yeah.
Which I've heard that's a pretty common route to take too.
Right. So I'm saying in that aspect, if you were prepared for that, that's, again, even if you weren't and you were like, I'm in too much pain, it's not a failure.
Or even if you walk into the hospital, like not barely feeling your contractions and you're like, give me the drugs.
Right.
That's also totally fine.
No. Yeah,
if you just want, if you know your body and you know that that's what's best for you, then that's what you should do.
Right.
I think part of another reason why I wanted to go that route was that the idea, first of all, I'm not a huge fan of needles. So the idea of the epidural was not super appealing.
You wouldn't have seen them.
I know, but still, just the concept. And then also the idea of not being able to feel my body at all, like from the waist down, like to not know what was happening and to not be able to listen to what was happening with my body and like being able to be kind of in control was scary to me. Like that idea kind of freaked me out. Like it was scarier to me to the concept of not being in control and not being able to feel anything versus knowing I was going to feel pain, but at least I could respond to it.
You know, as a dad, I did have a position on this. Obviously, your position and your feeling on this superseded anything I had to say about it, because obviously you're the one giving birth, not me. But, you know, when it came to the birth of my child, I personally am weirded out or had a level of discomfort knowing that should you have gotten the epidural, my child was going to be born, for lack of a better way to put it, high. Like she would be somewhat impaired, or sure, like her experience, her first breath as a human being wasn't in her first sense of being a human. Obviously she doesn't remember, obviously she doesn't know what the fuck was going on anyway, but she was, you know, she would have been rather a little fucked up.
I don't know how much science there is behind that.
Of course it is. It's in your bloodstream at that point,
I guess. But I guess it probably depends too on when you get the epidural and how much blood transfer there is to the baby before they're born.
Minimal.
And it's not harmful.
It's not a detriment. No. I'm saying my selfish, if I had, it's, side note, it's the same reason why I felt uncomfortable with you having a water birth. Like the let's be honest, again, not to get graphic here, but there's a lot of fluids when you're giving birth to a child, and all that's going to be pooled in a pool, essentially. And the baby's going to be born into that and breathe that in or have that.
Well, they don't take a breath until they come out of the water.
Regardless, like in its eyes or whatever. Like that just weirds me out. Again, it's totally cool if you did that. It's totally cool if anybody else did that. This is just a personal thing. It made me a little uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, you ended up understanding about the bath thing, and it turns out we couldn't have done it, and it wasn't an option.
Yeah, the underlying, guidelines and everything by the AAP and the hospital and all were in line with that. You could labor in the tub, but you couldn't deliver in the tub.
You couldn't deliver in water.
Right.
You could have delivered.
Right. There was
in the tub.
There was a hot tub in the alternative birthing center that I wanted to use.
You just couldn't have it filled.
No, you labor in it, but you can't actually deliver the baby. You can't deliver
the baby.
Right.
My point is that having that conversation together, you understood. I didn't dare have that conversation with you about the drugs because A, we were both on the same page, and B, I'm not the one feeling the pain. Like
right, you have no say.
No,
unless it pertains to the safety of me or the baby.
The baby wouldn't be.
You have no say.
In any danger if it was born fucked up.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, and I say fucked up.
That's what I mean. I don't
loose.
really even like that terminology.
It's loose. All right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Impaired. I don't know how to put it. But like, again, it's just my neurotic way of thinking. There's no science behind it. It's just baseless.
Yeah. Your gut instinct.
Let's move on to the actual birth.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. So, your water broke Friday night, June 16th, but you...
No, 15th.
15th, sorry, that's right. She was born the 16th. You were in labor a week before? Do I have that right? Like,
we don't know for
sure. You started dilating?
So
you suspect? Monday?
They can't pinpoint it. They're just...
You suspect it.
Oh, yes. So I thought I was having Braxton Hicks or some kind of just like cramping because, well, I was, however many, 40, 50 pounds heavier than normal and my back hurt. And that's what I thought it was. But in hindsight, they told me that it was most likely that I had actually been in labor for a couple of days, and I had probably been dilating for a couple of days based on the state that I was in when I finally did get to the hospital and how quickly things progressed. So there's no way to know for sure, but I was still, I was only 37 weeks, and so I was still going to work.
We went to the midwife that day.
I had my checkup that Friday afternoon. I had been at work. In fact, my coworkers threw me a baby shower that day, like a luncheon thing. Yep. And then after work, I went straight to the checkup
Yep.
I told them I'd been having the back pain, a little bit crampy, whatever. They said, oh, totally normal. Don't worry about it. Everything looks great.
Yep.
I left. I got a prenatal massage, which that's one theory as to what
probably brought
kicked
it up.
things into gear. From there, that was to deal with the back pain. Yep, the massage. And then I picked up a pizza for dinner. Got home and was sitting on the couch eating my pizza and my water broke.
We still have the receipt for that pizza.
Yep. And that was at like 7:30 in the evening.
Because I called my mom. And if dig back in the archives, my mom's a nurse. So at this point, she was not retired yet. I called her and I said, I'm pretty sure Cindy's water broke.
And I was still in total denial.
Right. And not to get into the details, but she said, describe what the fluid looks like, blah, blah, blah. And I told her and she was like, oh, no, definitely. The water definitely broke. And I said, okay, is this going to, like, what do we do? And she's like, you're going to go to the hospital tonight. Doesn't mean...
Your mom said all this?
Yes. But she's like, it doesn't mean the child's going to be born right away. But she's like, hang out for a few hours. You'll end up at the hospital tonight. You didn't think so.
No. Well, then we called our doula.
Mm-hmm.
And
she came right over.
No, not right away. She said, we'll call the midwife.
Oh.
So eventually, but even so, I don't think I called the midwife until like 9 or something, like a couple hours after because I still wasn't sure. But when I called the doula, explained to her what was happening, she said, call her. Huh?
I thought you knew.
Knew what?
That your water broke.
I mean, I think I did, but I was in denial.
Okay.
I didn't want to admit it because I kept saying, I'm only 37 weeks. I have 3 more weeks. In my head, I thought I could have had a month left. I was expecting, I was afraid of going late, 41 weeks, 42, or having to be induced,
Had she been born the day before, she would have been a preemie.
Preterm, right. Up to 36 weeks and 6 days is
made
premature.
The cut of, what is it? What was the terminology? She wasn't a premature baby. She was a...
preterm or no, I can't remember.
It was something.
Yeah. It's not, she was full term in terms of like, it was safe for her to be born.
She was full term.
Yeah, I can't remember. Whatever.
Anyways, I remember you wanting to cook because we needed meals. I had the bags packed. Shout out to predaddit.
Yeah.
Go to predaddit dads that are expecting. I promise you, the number one thing you need to do as a dad is pack those fucking bags month 5. Have those bags packed, ready, and at the door. You do not want to be rushing around that night, and I'll tell you why. Because I remembered everything else except for one thing. I had chargers in there. I had crossword puzzles in there in the event that she needed to do stuff.
Right, we were going on our friends who had 36 hours. You know what I mean?
Bluetooth speakers. I had pillows. I had favorite blankets. I had heated blankets. I had everything under the sun in that bag ready to go. I swear to fuck, when we walked into the hospital, it was like I was staying at a Howard Johnson. I swear to God. But anyways, so we're filling up everything. I was like, I need a coffee. I jetted to Dunkin' Donuts to get a coffee. I came home. I never told you this, but I was saving for the podcast. I was like, I am so stressed out. I need a drink. And I remember almost pouring a drink, and I was like, no, I'm not having a drink.
Well, there was the chance you were going to have to drive us to the hospital.
First of all, it was one drink.
Still.
Second of all, I was like, I do not want to have any sort of, no matter the degree of variance of impairment, I do not want to be at all impaired. I want it 0.0 on the breathalyzer.
Well, that's good because the ride to the hospital ended up being a doozy.
Well, someone else did it for me, the whole being drunk driving. So but yeah, so I do remember that the doula came over and she was like, you should probably get some rest. And
we were just hanging out for a while. We were like watching I was fine. Like I was nervous that because my water had broken, I was afraid that if contractions didn't start within a certain time frame, I think maybe it's 12 hours or something, then they have you come in and they start talking about induction because there's a risk of infection if your water breaks and labor hasn't actually started. So
if you come too early, they're like, go the fuck home.
Right. So that's what I was like. Everything I had read and everything I had heard had said, especially if you were aiming for an unmedicated birth, to wait as long as you could before you go to the hospital. Because if you were under 4 centimeters, I think it is, or something, dilation, they won't admit you to the hospital. And so, I didn't want to go too early and then be sent home. We also are like a half hour away from the hospital, which is not crazy, but still, I didn't want to be driving back and forth to the hospital.
Right.
So, right, when she came over, she said, by now it was like 11 o'clock at night, maybe.
I think so, yeah.
And 11:30. So it had been, 3-4 hours since my water had broken. And I was having contractions, but it wasn't anything. Again, I just was like, it was back labor. So my back hurt and pressure was helping. So one of you guys would apply pressure and it would pass. And we were trying to time them, but they were all over the place in terms of how far in between and how long they were. And so I was just like, all right, I'm not in like regular labor yet, or else the contractions would be more steady.
Right.
So she was like, yep, let's just try to get some sleep. And then in the morning, we'll call the midwife again, reevaluate, and probably head to the hospital sometime tomorrow. So around midnight, we go lay down.
And you were done.
As soon as I laid down, I was like, holy shit, I cannot sit still. I can't lay down. I need to get up. I need to walk around. I was in full, I wanted to walk around, but then I couldn't stand. I was in full labor, like contraction on top of contraction, no breaks. So intense. It was crazy. And our doula was like, she told me after the fact that, because I had asked you to run me a bath because I thought that would give me some relief. And she told you to go ahead and do that. And
you were like, I'm not having this.
Well, no, she was like, eventually she said, I think maybe we should start making our way to the car.
Yes.
And she told me after the fact that the reason why in that moment, she told me she didn't want me to get in the bath because the bath could stall labor.
Yeah.
But afterwards, she told me it was really because she knew that if I got in the bath, I wasn't getting out, and we were having an at-home water birth.
Right.
Like, she knew that's what was happening.
Right.
She said, looking back to, she's never seen someone go into progress that quickly from like normal labor into, they call it transition, which is the phase right before you deliver.
Yep.
So I was in full transition at that point. And so we loaded up the car. You had most of the stuff ready.
So we get in the car. Everything's ready to go. I have all the bags in the back in the trunk, and I'm like, all right, I'm doing a great job. We get in. You're screaming in the back seat. I turn on the car, and I'm like, I don't have my fucking ID or my wallet right now. And when we visited the hospital for
the tour,
they were like, if you don't have an ID, you can't come in.
Right. They put so much emphasis on the security and everything.
And I was like, I need to say something, because if I don't say anything and I'm not in, I'm going to miss it. And
that was the point where I said, I don't give a shit. Yeah, if you turn around right now, if you turn this car around, I'm going to kill you.
We're leaving the driveway, and I was like, I don't have my wallet.
But I could barely talk too. I was saying so many things to you in my head.
And our doula was like, I'll take care of it. So they called, and they were like, hey, she called and she
explained
said,
the situation. Yeah.
Dad doesn't have his ID with him. We left in haste. And they were like, of course we're going to let Dad in.
Yeah. They were like, don't worry about it. Just get here.
So we got there. We run in.
It's like 2 a.m. now.
And you collapsed to a chair.
Oh, yeah. They tried to bring me a wheelchair, and I just I felt like I was running. I probably wasn't very fast, but I was moving as fast as I could, just trying to get into the hospital. Because at that point, I needed help. Like, I knew, like, the baby was coming. Yep. Yeah. And so I just, like, walked right past the wheelchair guy, walked right into the lobby. And I think we went into the emergency room entrance.
I don't know. I just remember running back into the car to get more stuff. And I'm in shock, like, at my child's being born. And like, if I'm good with stress, I'm very tuned. I'm very zeroed in. But if things are like all over the place, so am I. So I remember running back in, and the guy was like, hold on, I need to take a picture or whatever.
For your badge.
And then he said to me, he's like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, I know, I just need to get to my wife. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, go. So I'm running to you, and the lady was like, stop, you need to fill out these forms. I was like, are you...
Oh, they said the same thing to me. When I walked in, the lady at the desk was asking me like my pharmacy and stuff. And I was like, I'm literally like, the baby is like crowning, like I'm like having a baby. Like, I remember she asked me those questions. I just like dropped to my hands and knees, and I was like laboring on the floor of the emergency room.
I was like, you're out of your ever-loving mind. I was like, they're like, who's her primary care? Who's this? I was like, lady, I don't know. Like, right now is not the time to be asking.
Well, we had already
called.
That's why our doula called in the car to ask them about your ID, but then also to let them know, like, we had been in touch with the midwife. Like, everybody knew that we were coming. It's just they didn't think we were going to get there that fast, and that I was going to be at that stage.
Right.
So our midwife wasn't even there yet. She wasn't at the hospital yet when we got there.
I was like, I'm going to fill these out to the best of my ability, but then I got to go.
Yeah.
So I ran into the room you were in.
Right. They had wheeled me into the just like exam room.
Yep, I had all this stuff.
I do remember that. I saw you come in the doorway with all that.
Edged by everyone, and I see you screaming in pain, and you were like, "Where's my midwife?" And I remember the nurse screaming,
"Yeah,
where's her midwife?" And she came in, completely calm.
Oh my God, she was so
cool
amazing.
As a cucumber. Checked to see if you were dilated. I made the mistake of looking, and I was like, "Shit!" And she was like, "Okay, Cindy, you are 10 centimeters dilated."
I was like, "I know."
And she was like, and you were like, "So I can push?" And you were really excited to push.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Not yet. Let's go to the room." So we had the alternative birthing room available to us. But before that, they saw me freaking out and they gave me a cool washcloth and they were like, "Just breathe." I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You look like you're going to pass out." I'm like, "No, I just can't stand seeing my wife like this." And
well, it was a little scary at that
here
point.
I am with bags and pillows. So like, what am I going to do?
Well, you had been so prepared with like, even we took the birth class where you learned all of those techniques to like help me through the labor and the breathing and all. We didn't have time for any of that shit. Like your job was solely just to get me to the hospital before the baby came out.
Yep.
Like that was all you could focus on. That was your primary focus. Yeah.
So we get up to the room and you go right to the edge of the bed and immediately start pushing.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I
sorry.
had been.
You went to the end of the bed, and then our midwife said, "Come to the side."
Right. She didn't have room.
So we came to the side of the bed, and you were in full squat. I don't know if you meant to do it like with perfect form, but you were in full squat.
I remember you saying that to me about my
like,
form.
Your form is outstanding right now. Because it was like full sumo squat, arms out.
I wasn't thinking about anything.
And I guess she crowned. And our midwife was like, "How do you feel right now?" And then you said, "Are you fucking serious right now?" And she's like, "Yes, how do you feel?" We don't have to get into your response, but she was like, "Okay, good, go."
Yeah.
And one push, she's like, "Okay, your baby's born. And she swoops our child.
She told me to reach down.
Right into your arms, and you just start laughing. You're like, "I fucking did it. I did it. And you're laughing. And I'm getting emotional right now. I was in tears. I was like, "What the fuck is going on? What is going on?" And like, my hands were over my mouth. My hands were over my eyes.
You were in complete shock. Yeah.
And I was like, "I can't believe what just happened." And you're laughing.
Hormones. Was that oxytocin?
Laughing. You're like, "That was nothing." And there she is. She's like,
well, you said I just like strolled in over the bed and laid down.
Your trail of blood. You're like, "I don't give a fuck." Just like walking around. Umbilical cord was a little short, and they said that they're like, it's not.
I had to carry her like on my
cord.
stomach. She like couldn't reach up to my chest.
Like you just won $1 million, just like rocking her back and forth, going to the bed. And I just remember seeing her. First of all, she had like a little cone head, and she immediately went for her. If she was laying like this, she went for her left hand and started sucking between the thumb and index finger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember going to you and I said, "You did it. And you said, "I did it." And I gave you a kiss. And then I kissed my child for the first time. And I was like, the first thing I thought of was, she smells like pussy. She just smells like pussy. And like, I guess that makes sense. But I was like, she just reeks of vagina.
Oh my gosh, that
right
was
now.
like so touching. You were tearing up and then you had to say that.
Anyways.
Yeah. So that was how she came into the world, fast and furious, and 3 weeks early. She was in quite the hurry.
2:12.
2:42.
2:42
a.m.
Okay.
Yep. So from the time that my water broke was around 7:30 p.m. on
So
Friday night,
7
and she was
hours.
born at 2:42 a.m.
7
Saturday.
hours of labor.
Yep. And
Which sounds
only,
like, I bet you there are women out there that are like, that's a fucking vacation.
of course.
Yeah.
No, 100%. That's what I'm saying. I know plenty of women who've been in labor for 24, 36 hours, or like, it's insane.
Right.
And that's why I say, you know, for me, it turns out I did plan for an unmedicated birth, but it wouldn't have mattered because nothing went as planned, and I wouldn't have had time to get the epidural anyway.
Right. By the time we arrived at the hospital, they wouldn't have
There's
given
no
it to
way.
you.
There's no way. So from that perspective, yeah, the choice was made for me. It didn't matter, but I'm still glad that I went about things the way that I did. I'm glad that we had the midwife we did and the doula that we did made all the difference, because it was pretty scary.
But it was great. The hospital we went to, shout out to Women and Infants, they were great in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
The food there is excellent.
Yeah, we stayed for 2 nights.
Shout out to our friends that got us the Stork's Nest dinner, which is
that was amazing.
A filet mignon, and obviously there's no booze.
It's just like a nice sit down. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And they came in and they were on baby duty while we ate dinner.
Dads out there, most uncomfortable thing is sleeping in the room.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable, but
don't talk about uncomfortable.
No. I'm not trying to make comparisons. I'm just saying, for it, like, it sucks, but like, obviously you do it, you muscle through it. But yeah, it was, I remember she was, I was afraid to go to sleep. We didn't know how to, wrap her,
swaddle
her. I figured it out the last day.
Yep.
You still didn't know when we went home. I was the swaddle person.
Well, you were mostly doing that, and you also changed all her diapers in the hospital because it was such a such a pain, literally, to get up and do any of that. So I
changed her first diaper.
I did have it's not too graphic. I did have some stitches. I mean, the birth was just so fast, and so my recovery was
only a second-degree tear, which is good.
Yeah, only.
No, I'm saying good in terms of, like, I'm sure
yes,
there are women out there
it definitely
that are
could have
like,
been worse.
Second-degree tear, I would have killed for that.
I get it. Yeah,
you know,
but it still was. It was very difficult to get up,
of course,
in and out of bed for a couple of days.
I'm not downplaying that, but I do give you credit. They only prescribed you ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Pretty badass. I'm saying, like, I get my wisdom teeth taken out and I need Vicodin, and I still don't feel it.
I mean, getting your wisdom teeth out is no walk in the park either.
Regardless. That's how it was done. And we had a pretty strict, for the first 24 hours, no one comes.
Right.
We were like 24 hours by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And because we didn't want to get bombarded, we didn't want to be distracted.
It had been so hectic too. We just wanted to
enjoy our child.
Yeah, we needed time to just like reset and recover.
Constantly people coming into the room.
It was just go, and we just needed some quiet.
We needed to sleep. Side note, if you're expecting a child and you're listening to this, steal everything.
That's right.
Steal all their diapers, steal all the formula if you're going that route, or if you want to like have formula on hand in case breastfeeding doesn't work out. That's what we did. Blankets, steal it all. And you think that's a bad thing until the nurses say, take everything.
Yep.
Take everything, because I'm telling you, they have plenty.
Yep.
They have plenty. So like diapers, what we did, as I remember, bringing a trash bag, filling up all the drawers with all their available packets of diapers, took them to the car, came back, and we were like, we have no diapers here. We need diapers. And they were like, okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah. Gave us a sitz bath for free, everything. It was great.
Yep. Yeah. Take all the baby stuff and all the mom recovery stuff too.
And if this is your first child and you're driving home, it is the scariest thing. It is this.
I cried the whole way home.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe they are allowing us to do this.
Well, we had even our couple nights in the hospital. Yeah. Like, and we didn't have to take a test or like anything. Like, it was just our first couple nights with her in the hospital were challenging because because she was early. I mean, she was still, far enough along that it was safe for her to be born, but it was, she still had some trouble. We did have a lot of trouble with nursing at first, and we had to supplement. She was drinking from a little cup. She was drinking from like the tiniest little syringe fed her at first. Like, and
she had to get her first surgery 3 days later, and by surgery, she was tongue tied. So like the thing really connecting to the bottom of your mouth to your tongue, that little strip of flesh, just a simple cut.
Yeah. But so she was crying a lot in the hospital, and I think I look back and I'm like, man, I wonder if she was hungry because
she was also, what's the liver thing? She was a little yellow.
Oh, jaundice?
Yeah.
A little bit. I also think that's common too
Yeah.
with if they're a little bit early.
She was small. She was 6 pounds.
6 pounds, 2 ounces.
And tiny.
Which that's not even that tiny. It's pretty average. I think that's about how big I was
She
when
was
I was
just
born.
small.
But
She was a small human.
But yeah, we did have a lot of trouble with feeding in the beginning. And I think by the time, like, I felt like that morning that we were leaving, like, we just got the hang of, like, how often and how much she needed to eat and what the signs were that she was still hungry. And it was just, an incredibly steep learning curve. I don't even remember. Cool. Because I still did want to breastfeed, even though she wasn't latching right away. And so I was also pumping. So it was like I did not sleep because I was like pumping every hour, and then she was eating every hour or two. And with the formula and so it was.
Yeah. We're just rehashing shit when it came to us.
That's a lot.
Let's move on. So we're about 55 minutes into this. When it comes to toddler years, so let's just run through.
Oh, we're going from hospital to toddler?
Well, I mean, like, no. All right, it's fine. Up to toddlerhood.
Yeah.
We don't have to go from 1 year on, because 1 year, obviously first steps and stuff like that, that's significant, but her personality was pretty well established at 1 on. When it came to we'll say the first 6 months, 7, 8 months, when we got home, I was pretty fearless. Like, I remember you saying to me, you were like, you're just taking it. You're just doing it. And I was like, because, circumstances beyond my control, I ended up taking 2 weeks off of work. It was only supposed to be 1 week, but like, that's a different story for a different day. But I was like, my time with you is limited. You need to sleep.
I was still physically recovering.
Let's just do this. So like, you were physically recovering. So I was with her a lot. The first couple months they're not, she was a quote unquote easy baby in terms of like, she didn't have the colic. She didn't have colic.
No. It was all just related to her feeding. And once we got a hang of that, finally.
She slept well for a newborn. Yep. She was doing like 3-4 hour stretches.
Eventually, yeah. For a while, we still had to feed her like every 2 hours.
Right. But, she was good. And the first couple months, the one thing as a dad that I noticed is that really, again, things change. There was no relation. There is no father-child relationship.
I wouldn't say there is none.
All right. So the child, all it cares about is sleeping and eating. Like, that's just...
Sure.
They don't know.
But
I'm sure they have a sense of mom and dad or like caretakers, but they just want to be fed and they want to eat
and comforted.
And yes. But I'm saying I feel like children have a natural attachment to their mother, prioritized wise. So like,
I was also with her.
Preferred you.
Yeah, because like you said, you went back to work after just a couple weeks, and I was with her all day, every day for 3 months.
Right. So like, in terms of like, by no means am I saying I was an absent father. It's just America sucks with their, paternity leaves. So I had to go back to work. It was kind of rough. It was kind of rough, like not being there all the time. And like, I'm not saying she didn't recognize me, but like the priority was you. That's obviously, she wants mom. She wants to eat.
Yeah, but there were also plenty of times where you were able to calm her down or soothe her, and I wasn't.
Yeah, I remember the ohms.
Yeah.
But eventually that changes come like month 3 or 4 when, she starts to smile, she starts to recognize, she can see you.
Yep.
And the fun really begins, I feel like, between the 6 month to a year mark, when you're starting to give her solids and she's eating food, she's starting to like jibber jabber with her words
and move more, like sitting up and crawling and
army crawl and stuff. It's fun. And
then after a year, it's just like lightning speed.
Yes.
Like something new every single day since her first birthday.
Yeah, we can get into toddlerhood later, but when it came to her infancy, what stood out to you?
Well, I just remember definitely knowing that she was a good sleeper.
Yeah. In comparison
comparatively
to the horror stories we
correct,
heard from
but then
people.
Also feeling like, holy shit, if this is like the good version, what are some other people going through with bad sleepers?
Bad, they're not sleeping.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I just remember thinking about, like when I look back on when I did go back to work after 3 months, I mean, 3 months is like nothing, because I remember at that point she was still getting up 2-3 times a night at least to eat. And she did that until about 10 months. So it's like, and I was working that whole time, and I just think I'm just like, I don't know how I did it, but I mean, it was all totally worth it, obviously. And I mean, I don't know what stood out to me, like just how every single thing she does, even though it's and that she did when she was that little, even though it's totally normal, like stuff that everybody does, is like amazing when your child does it for the first time. Even though it's something you know she's gonna do.
Yeah.
You know that every single human being learns how to walk or to crawl or to say mama or dada or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when they do it for the first time, it's like a miracle. And it's just like,
we have a picture
never
of her
ceases
first
to amaze
smile. That we have a picture of her first gas smile, and we have a picture of her actual first smile,
which wasn't for either of us.
It was from my mom. My mom has a way of getting her grandchildren to be attached to her. That's not to say anything about it.
No, they love her.
Yeah, I'm just. So she smiled for her for the first time. We have videos of her smiling with me for the first time because I kept bopping her nose, and you got mad because she wasn't doing it for you.
Yeah.
But eventually that just changes. Like it's the progression of her becoming a quote unquote real human being. It's not to say she wasn't before, but like a recognizable personality traits kind of person. It's great. And if you would have asked me before, like while you were pregnant, like to tie a bow up in this, you know, if I would have thought she'd be this way, her personality wise, no, I wouldn't have thought of it.
What did you think she was going to be like?
Don't know. But like, I don't think I even gave it that much thought. I just always thought about her as a toddler, like doing stuff with her for the first time, like playing tea parties or playing dolls or playing baseball or something, basketball. I guess I'd never really thought too much about her personality because maybe that speaks to like the blank canvas I was allowing her to be.
Maybe.
You know, like it doesn't matter. As long as she's not killing people. Like,
I got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, but like, you know, it doesn't matter what her personality is to me. It doesn't matter if she doesn't, like we already talked about this in gender roles. It doesn't matter if she enjoys the things I enjoy either. It's just, none of that mattered because I was going to love her anyway.
Well, I do remember talking about how she was weird, like from the when she was really little. Even like she was always goofy and a little weird.
Well, she's definitely goofy now.
Yeah, it's great.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Well, I guess I'm curious to hear from you. What has this taught you about how to manage your expectations moving forward? I mean, we're still barely 2 years in.
I thought my expectations were fine. I didn't really have, like I said, when it came to her being born, it's not to say that that's all you. It was like, I'm completely secondary to that. So obviously if we have another child, it's going to be a little different because now we have her involved. Right. So I'm going to primarily be, not to say I'm not going to worry about you, but someone's got to worry about her too. Like,
right. I think it'll be natural that I'll be more with the new baby,
or if your mom's involved or my mom's involved. Like, I need to make sure she's taken care of.
You mean like during actual birth of the second child?
No, like imagine like you being in labor at that 7 o'clock and we had a child. Like, already my number one concern is someone needs to come here.
Oh yeah,
watch,
of course.
You know what I mean?
We'll have
like,
a plan for that. Don't worry.
But
I'll probably have a spreadsheet.
When she was born, like when you were in labor, my number one concern was you. So like my expectations now, if we do this again, it's going to be split. And
we're just going to have to plan for it. Yeah.
You know, so now that there's someone else involved that's quote unquote helpless or dependent, it's different. But when it came to how she was born and stuff, my expectations were, I didn't have any because it's not, I mean, it's sort of about me, but it's not really about me. It's not
but you did in terms of like how like you said, we did the hospital tour, you did the birth classes with me, you learned all these things. You're so, you paid so much attention to what you packed in the bags, you put so much thought into that. And then a lot of that went right out the window.
I was just being responsible.
I know.
but I'm not going to plan for another quick labor.
Right. No, you're right.
And if that happens, good, bad.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know.
That's
but
good.
like,
That'd be good. Well, it'd be good if it happens in the same time frame. I'm all for another quick labor and delivery. But yeah, this time hopefully we'll be more prepared for it.
Yeah, I am proud to say that I only did, other than the daily thing that you played for me, podcast wise. It was like a 5-minute podcast.
Oh, it was like the weekly. Yep.
I
podcast, yeah.
only went to Daddit. That's it. And I never posted. I was just reading subs about here's what you do here. And like a lot of that stuff I'm glad I did, because like I would have forgotten her phone charger.
Right. Yep.
I bought one.
I think that's more helpful than some of the stuff. Like you got to also weed out the bullshit from. Like,
I never participated in the bullshit.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying stuff like that, like what to pack in the bag is helpful information, and there's less. I'm just cautioning about when it comes to like actual like the pregnancy and birth stuff, that there's a lot of misinformation out there too, and people, yeah, like I said, because we were like in the semi-crunchy realm, like working with a midwife
We
and doing
vaccinated
unmedicated.
our child.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying it was so watching those two worlds. Well, I guess they're not separate worlds, but seeing all the bullshit that came through from like the anti-vax, like extra crunchy world bleed into just like the basics of what I was looking for unmedicated births, working with midwives, that sort of thing was a little scary. So yeah,
no,
I feel much better
participated
informed this time
in that.
around.
I never did. If that's what you guys want to do, that's cool with me. But
well, there's a lot to learn from it as long as you know when you're looking at bullshit.
Right. What did you learn, I guess?
Are you asking me what I learned from those?
Yeah.
I think it was mostly, like I said before, about just hearing other people's experiences and birth stories and knowing the wide range and being aware of the whole spectrum of things that could happen or that may not happen or whatever. It just kind of, I think it gave me a complete picture. Well, I say complete picture, but then I never expected that I would be trying not to push in the backseat of the car either. Right. So that option somehow never came to me. So I think I did learn a lot, but I think no matter how much you prepare, you never know how it's actually going to go down. And you just got to go with the flow.
Well, again, if this is not the way that you envision, obviously it's not going to be exactly the same, but my biggest advice for everybody, and this is the way I went about it when it came to other people who were subsequently pregnant after we had our child, I said, do it the way you want to do. Invite whoever you want to invite, and make sure you tell, if you don't want particular people there, tell the hospital staff, they'll take care of it. Because like I said, that first 24 hours, we specifically said to them, no visitors, and they said not a problem. They took care of it. So for us, it was, I highly suggest make this your own. Do what you think is best for you and your family, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And however you envision it, it might not become that way. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, you're still going to remember it anyway. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
This was fun.
I don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
I have a couple ideas, but we'll think about it.
Yeah, we'll think about it. We'll keep you guys on your toes. But again, thanks for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, Cindy is now operating the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/whileshe'snapping. Same name of this podcast. If you want to interact on Twitter, that's pretty much where I am predominantly. It's at She's Napping Pod. That is at SHESNAPPINGPOD. You can find us there. Shoot us a follow and interact with us if you like this episode or previous episodes, or if you don't, you can tell me why. And if you want to contact us via email,
whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
hit us up. Tell us, if you want to talk to us about birth stories, if you want, some feedback on, or not feedback, if you want some advice, if you're looking for it, or if you want some, more in-depth detail as to what we did, we're happy to oblige. But until next week, thanks again, and see ya.
Bye.